Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to Bible in a Year with Lovie. We are on day 171. Let me apologize. Right now, I'm still trying to navigate new situations that I'm dealing with, and being able to record every day is not that easy. I did get to record that one day while I was at work. I've taken my Bible with me every day to work after that, and I didn't get a chance to record on those days. So, I mean, it's kind of touch and go, and I'm still learning to navigate all this. So, I'm doing my best to make sure that I don't quit what I started. We are going to complete the Bible. It's going to obviously be a little bit more than a year because there'll be, days here and there where I just simply cannot record. So y'all forgive me, and please just bear with me. We're still going to keep reading. And those of you who have been, tagging along with me, I really appreciate your love and support. And the fact that y'all are still here just speaks volumes to me. And so thank y'all so much. And let's just continue to do our best to be a blessing to other people. So today we're reading the Life Application Study Bible, 3rd edition, New Living Translation. Today we are starting the book of Esther. I love Esther's story. It's a beautiful story, and I believe if you haven't heard it, you'll love it too. So Esther chapter 1, we're going to read 1 and 2, and then we're going to flip over to Acts chapter 5 and start it off. I may very well record another video or two after church today, so I just kind of have them stacked up. So it just kind of depends on what all I have to do whenever I get back from church. So we'll see. This is my pre-church recording. Anyways, let's dive right in. Esther chapter 1. These events happened in the days of King Xerxes, who reigned over 127 provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia. At that time, Xerxes ruled his empire from his royal throne at the fortress of Susa. In the 3rd year of his reign, he gave a banquet for all his nobles and officials. He invited all the military officers of Persia and Media, as well as the princes and nobles of the provinces. The celebration lasted 180 days, a tremendous display of opulent wealth of his empire and the pomp and splendor of his majesty. When it was all over, the king gave a banquet for all the people, from the greatest to the least, who were in the fortress of Susa. It lasted for 7 days and was held in the courtyard of the palace garden. The courtyard was beautifully decorated with white cotton curtains and blue hangings, which were fastened with white linen cords, and purple ribbons to silver rings embedded in marble pillars. Gold and silver couches stood on a mosaic pavement of porphyry. I'm not really sure. Porphyry, marble, mother of pearl, and other costly stones. I'm going to have to look that up because I don't know what that is. Drinks were served in gold goblets of many designs, and there was an abundance of royal wine reflecting the king's generosity. By edict of the king, no limits were placed on the drinking, for the king had instructed all his palace officials to serve each man as much as he wanted. At the same time, Queen Vashti gave a banquet for the women in the royal palace of King Xerxes. On the 7th day of the feast, when King Xerxes was in high spirits because of the wine, he told the 7 eunuchs who attended him, Human, Biztha, Harbona, Bigtha, Abagtha, Zether, and Carcass to bring Queen Vashti to him with the royal crown on her head. He wanted the nobles and all the other men to gaze on her beauty, for she was a very beautiful woman. But when they conveyed the king's order to Queen Vashti, she refused to come. This made the king furious, and he burned with anger. He immediately consulted with his wise advisors, who knew all the Persian laws and customs, for he always asked for their advice. The names of these men were Karshana, Shethar, Admatha, Tarshish, Meres, Marsana, and Memucan, 7 nobles of Persia and Media. They met with the king regularly and held the highest positions in the empire. What must be done to Queen Vashti, the king demanded. What penalty does the law provide for a queen who refuses to obey the king's orders, properly sent through his eunuchs? Memucan answered the king and his nobles, Queen Vashti has wronged not only the king, but also every noble and citizen throughout the empire. Women everywhere will begin to despise their husbands when they learn that Queen Vashti has refused to appear before the king. Before this day is out, the wives of all the king's nobles throughout Persia and Media will hear what the queen did and will start treating their husbands the same way. There will be no end to their contempt and anger. So, if it please the king, we suggest that you issue a law of the Persian and Medes that cannot be revoked. It should order that Queen Vashti be forever banished from the presence of King Xerxes, and that the king should choose another queen more worthy than she. When this decree is published throughout the king's vast empire, husbands everywhere, whatever their rank, will receive proper respect from their wives. The king and his nobles thought this made good sense, so he followed Memucan's counsel. He sent letters to all parts of the empire, to each province in its own script and language, proclaiming that every man should be the ruler of his own home and should say whatever he pleases. Chapter 2. But after Xerxes' anger had subsided, he began thinking about Vashti and what she had done and the decree he had made. So his personal attendants suggested, let us search the empire to find beautiful young virgins for the king. Let the king appoint agents in each province to bring these beautiful young women into the royal harem at the fortress of Susa. Haggai, the king's eunuch in charge of the harem, will see that they are all given beauty treatments. After that, the young woman who most pleases the king will be made queen instead of Vashti. This advice was very appealing to the king, so he put the plan into effect. At that time, there was a Jewish man in the fortress of Susa whose name was Mordecai, son of Jair. He was from the tribe of Benjamin and was a descendant of Kish and Shimei. His family had been among those who with King Jehoiachin of Judah, had been exiled from Jerusalem to Babylon by King Nebuchadnezzar. This man had a very beautiful and lovely young cousin, Hadassah, who was also called Esther. When her father and mother died, Mordecai adopted her into his family and raised her as his own daughter. As a result of the king's decree, Esther, along with many other young women, was brought to the king's harem at the fortress of Susa and placed in Haggai's care. Haggai was very impressed with Esther and treated her kindly. He quickly ordered a special menu for her and provided her with beauty treatments. He also assigned her 7 maids specially chosen from the king's palace, and he moved her and her maids into the best place in the harem. Esther had not told anyone of her nationality and family background because Mordecai had directed her not to do so. Every day, Mordecai would take a walk near the courtyard of the harem to find out about Esther and what was happening with her. Before each young woman was taken to the king's bed, she was given the prescribed 12 months of beauty treatments. 6 months with oil of myrrh, followed by 6 months with special perfumes and ointments. When it was time for her to go to the king's palace, she was given her choice of whatever clothing or jewelry she wanted to take from the harem. That evening, she was taken to the king's private rooms, and the next morning she was brought to the second harem, where the king's wives lived. There she would be under the care of Shashgaz, the king's eunuch, in charge of the concubines. She would never go to the king again unless he had especially enjoyed her and requested her by name. Esther was the daughter of Abihail, who was Mordecai's uncle. Mordecai had adopted his younger cousin Esther. When it was Esther's turn to go to the king, she accepted the advice of Haggai, the eunuch in charge of the harem. She asked for nothing except what he suggested, and she was admired by everyone who saw her. Esther was taken to King Xerxes at the royal palace in early winter of the 7th year of his reign, and the king loved Esther more than any of the other young women. He was so delighted with her that he set the royal crown on her head and declared her queen instead of Vashti. To celebrate the occasion, he gave a great banquet in Esther's honor for all his nobles and officials, declaring a public holiday for the provinces and giving generous gifts to everyone. Even after all the young women had been transferred to the second harem and Mordecai had become a palace official, Esther continued to keep her family background and nationality a secret. She was still following Mordecai's directions, just as she did when she lived in his home. One day, as Mordecai was on duty at the king's gate, two of the king's eunuchs, Bigthana and Teresh, who were guards at the door of the king's private quarters, became angry with King Xerxes and plotted to assassinate him. But Mordecai heard about the plot and gave the information to Queen Esther. She then told the king about it and gave Mordecai credit for the report. When an investigation was made and Mordecai's story was found to be true, the two men were impaled on a sharpened pole. This was all recorded in the book of the history of King Xerxes' reign. And that is all in Esther for today. I love this story. I love this story so much. We'll pick up on chapter 3 whenever I record again. I won't say later today. I won't say tomorrow. I'll just say whenever I record again. All right? Next time. All right, let's flip over to Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5. We're going to read it about halfway. Acts chapter 5. Some good coffee this morning. All right, here we go. But there was a certain man named Ananias who, with his wife, Sapphira, sold some property. He brought part of the money to the apostles, claiming it was the full amount. With his wife's consent, he kept the rest. Then Peter said, Ananias, why have you let Satan fill your heart? You lied to the Holy Spirit and you kept some of the money for yourself. The property was yours to sell or not sell as you wished. And after selling it, the money was also yours to give away. How could you do a thing like this? You weren't lying to us, but to God. As soon as Ananias heard these words, he fell to the floor and died. Man, everyone who heard about it was terrified. I'd have been terrified about it. That scared me right now just reading it. Then some young men got up, wrapped him in a sheet, and took him out and buried him. About 3 hours later, his wife came in, not knowing what had happened. Peter asked her, was this the price you and your husband received for your land? Yes, she replied, that was the price. And Peter said, how could the two of you even think of conspiring to test the Spirit of the Lord like this? The young men who buried your husband are just outside the door, and they will carry you out too. Instantly, she fell to the floor and died. When the young men came in and saw that she was dead, they carried her out and buried her beside her husband. Great fear gripped the entire church and everyone else who heard what had happened. I want y'all to understand this happened not because they didn't give this the whole amount, but because they lied about it. They lied to the church. They lied to the apostles. Like, they're like, bro, you're lying to God. You ain't lying. I mean, like, you ain't hurting us. You're lying to God. You're hurting your own self. You know, who are you fooling? Who am I fooling? You know, like, we have to be really careful with what we say and how we say it. We need to have a very respectful fear of God. That's what this nation is missing, the fear of God. That's the truth. The apostles were performing many miraculous signs and wonders among the people, and all the believers were meeting regularly at the temple in the area known as Solomon's Colonnade. But no one else dared to join them, even though all the people had high regard for them. Yet more and more people believed and were brought to the Lord, crowds of both men and women. As a result of the apostles' work, sick people were brought out into the streets on beds and mats so that Peter's shadow might fall across some of them as he went by. Crowds came from the villages around Jerusalem, bringing their sick and those possessed by evil spirits, and they were all healed. It says, as a result of the apostles' work, sick people were brought out into the streets on beds and mats so that Peter's shadow might fall across some of them as he went by. They had such faith back then that they believed that even if his shadow was cast upon them, they would be healed. That's the kind of faith we should have. I'm just saying. What does your faith look like? And I'm not just saying you in general. I'm pointing at my own self. What does my faith look like? Is it strong enough to believe that just the shadow of that great apostle can heal me? Can change the very thing that's causing me grief? I think that's some really powerful faith right there. That's some strong faith right there, boy. Just saying. All right. The high priest and his officials, who were Sadducees, were filled with jealousy. They arrested the apostles and put them in the public jail. But an angel of the Lord came at night, opened the gates of the jail, and brought them out, because he sets captives free, let me tell you. Then he told them, go to the temple and give the people this message of life. So at daybreak, the apostles entered the temple, as they were told, and immediately began teaching. When the high priest and officials arrived, they convened the high council, the full assembly of the elders of Israel. Then they sent for the apostles to be brought from the jail for trial. But when the temple guards went to the jail, the men were gone. So they returned to the council and reported, the jail was securely locked with the guards standing outside. But when we opened the gates, no one was there. That's where we're going to stop for today. I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Y'all remember, if you want to see a change, you got to be the change. We lead by example. We follow by design. If it ain't a God thing, it ain't a good thing. I'm going to keep y'all lifted up in my prayers, and I pray that y'all continue to keep me lifted up in yours. Like I said, I'm navigating in a different season right now. I'm trusting God's will first in everything, and I know that it's all going to work out accordingly. It's just trying to schedule things as they need to be, and I'm gonna get there. Y'all just bear with me. I thank y'all for having patience with me. I love y'all. I pray y'all have a blessed and wonderful rest of the day, and don't forget to love like Jesus.